3 years. 1,095 days of learning to shrink myself, to keep the peace, to be soft enough not to bruise his ego, yet strong enough to hold our crumbling marriage together. And today, our anniversary. My reward lay in front of me. Divorce papers, perfectly aligned on the table, like a business proposal. Mandela's signature gleamed on the last page, bold and unapologetic. He must have signed them this morning, right after I'd placed that handmade card on his desk. The one I'd spent half the night crafting, gluing seashells around the border because he always said the ocean reminded him of us. He hadn't even opened it. My coffee had gone cold, untouched. The sound of waves crashing beyond the window filled the silence between us. Durban mornings were always like this, bright, warm, alive. Everything I wasn't feeling inside. "Sign here," Mandela said, sliding the papers toward me. "And here." His tone was distant, professional, the same one he used in meetings. Sticky tabs marked the spots where my initials should go. I looked at him. "You're doing this today? On our anniversary?" He sighed, that long, practiced sigh that always meant this again. "Lerato, there's no point dragging this out." The diamond on my finger caught the sunlight. 3 carats, princess cut, picked out by his mother. "Not your style, dear, but Mthembu wife should wear something that speaks of legacy." Legacy, that was always the word with them. Legacy, not love. "Is there someone else?" I asked quietly. He straightened his tie, the blue silk one I'd given him for Christmas. "Yes." The word hit harder than I expected. Just 3 letters, and yet it hollowed out the space between us. Flashback 2 months earlier. He came home late again, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. When I asked, he said the scent came from a client meeting. I knew better. "She came back to Durban," he admitted now, his gaze fixed on the tiled floor. "It just happened." I repeated it under my breath. 2 months. All those unanswered calls. The nights he said he was at the office. The mornings he didn't kiss me goodbye. I laughed, though it sounded more like a gasp. "Were you ever going to tell me? Or wait until I signed your freedom away?" "I didn't want to hurt you." "That's thoughtful of you," I said, voice trembling. "You always were considerate." After the damage was done, my hand brushed against my coffee mug, toppled, shattering. Black liquid spread across the tiles, seeping into every crack. A dark bloom on something that used to be pure. "Let me clean that." "Don't." I cut him off. "Don't pretend to care now." As I bent to pick up the shards, something slipped from the stack of papers. A photograph. Our trip to Umhlanga. We were laughing in the picture, the sea wind in our hair. But a faint blue line had been drawn across my face. That's when the trembling stopped. Later that night, after he left, the silence felt heavy, almost alive. The ocean outside was louder than usual, as if it was trying to remind me that storms never last forever. I opened his laptop, the one he thought was password protected. It wasn't. Mandela's arrogance had always been his weakness. Emails, bank records, hidden accounts under the name Nomusa Dlamini, the mistress, offshore transfers, bribes disguised as consultancy fees. I read every file with steady hands. And then I started to write. Not another love letter. Not another apology. A confession, I detailed everything, the fraud, the illegal transfers, the manipulation. I printed it all, sealed it in an envelope, and wrote one simple line on the front. "Consider this my signature." Before dawn, I placed my ring on the kitchen counter beside the sealed envelope and left the house. 3 days later, the Mercury headline screamed, "Durban businessman Mandela Mthembu under investigation for corruption." Reporters swarmed his company headquarters. His board suspended him, and somewhere in that chaos, I imagined him staring at the envelope I'd left, the one he probably assumed contained my tears. They found it on his desk, next to the divorce papers. On top of it, I'd left a small seashell, the same kind he once said carried the sound of the ocean. When you hear the ocean, you hear forever, he'd told me once. He was right. Forever echoes even when love drowns. 1 month later, the smell of salt and roasted coffee filled my new studio in Glenwood, tide and thread. I'd painted the walls seafoam green, lined the shelves with handmade cards and shell art. Customers came in for art lessons, stories, or just the comfort of silence. The first morning it rained, I stood by the window, watching the drops trace paths down the glass. For the first time, the sound didn't make me feel small. It made me feel alive. A small radio on the counter hummed with the morning news. Mandlam Thembu has fled the country, the reporter said. Then, anonymous sources credited the whistleblower, known only as L. I smiled and turned up the volume of the ocean playing from my phone instead. Freedom has a sound. It's not silence. It's the tide returning to shore. Final scene. I walked down to the beach, barefoot, the sand cool beneath my feet. The ocean roars wild, endless, forgiving. I toss the last of the signed papers into the waves and whisper, "Consider this my beginning." The tide swallows them whole. And as the sun rises over Durban's horizon, Lerato Mthembu finally walks away, not broken, but reborn.